Good evening and welcome to our Pullman City Council meeting for this Tuesday, December 14th. This will be our last council meeting of this year. And first of all, let's have roll taken. So, Dee?
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Councilmember Chapman. Councilmember McCall.
Here.
Councilmember Parks.
Here.
Councilmember Sorensen. Councilmember Weller.
Present.
Councilmember Wright.
Here.
Both Brandon Chapman and Al Sorensen notified us they could not be here tonight. Do I hear a motion to excuse?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That under announcements tonight, Parks and Facilities Director Alan Davis is wrapping up 45 years of dedicated service to the city of Pullman. We're going to have a little celebration on his behalf this Thursday between 1 and 3 at the Senior Lounge. And I know a number of people want to come in and thank Alan for his leadership and running parks and just doing a fantastic job. So again, he'll be at the Senior Lounge 1 to 3 o'clock on this Thursday. Also, WSU President Kirk Schultz and First Lady Noel Schultz will have their holiday open house this Thursday as well. That'll be from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. More information at pullmanchamber.com. You can stop by December 18th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. for unique holiday shopping and bring home treats and treasures and enjoy at Pullman Winter Market, located at the Brailsford Visitor Center. And memberships also make great gifts for the Pullman Aquatic and Fitness Center. Annual pass is 20% off through the month of December. Gift certificates are available too, so you can purchase your annual membership online at pullmanswim.com or just call 338-3290. So those are our announcements tonight. Tonight, this represents our time with our state legislators, and we're very grateful that they can be here with us tonight. I also want to just make a pitch that the fact that we have government affairs with the Chamber of Commerce, and when the legislature is meeting, we meet with these legislators twice a month, and usually at 7:30 in the morning. When the legislature isn't meeting, we still meet with them at 7:30 in the morning. They're very available to us, and we really appreciate it. We have a number of people in the community that attend that from the different areas in terms of hospital, education, university, every place like that. But I just also want to thank Mark and Joe that are here tonight for being available to all of us and representing us, this community. And so tonight we'll start, first of all, with our Senator, Mark Sessler, and give us an update on what you see coming up in the legislature, and then we'll hear from Joe Schmidt. So, Mark?
Well, thank you, Mayor Johnson. Sort of the 30,000-foot overview of the short 30-day or 60-day session when we deal with supplemental budgets for all categories. In recent times, it sometimes seems almost like a biennial budget again with some of the ideas for spending and legislation. So in a hybrid version of last session versus normal, we'll see what that brings. But if we look at the overall budget, we have about $10 billion over expenses for the current biennium and the next biennium. So without a doubt, we're in pretty good fiscal shape. That's the good news. There's always a lot of ideas how to spend it. At this point, got to say there's a lot of hardworking taxpayers out there that aren't a part of some of the plans, and we probably should be looking at what could we do for the average taxpayer, whether we look at sales tax reduction, property tax, the third highest cell phone tax in America. There's a lot of ideas that would be a good debate to have. We see we have a declining caseload, which has contributed to that, which is good news. So we have some flexibility, and all the while, hopefully remember we do need a decent rainy day fund. It sounds like a lot of money, but sometimes it's actually a smaller percentage than what Whitman County might maintain, or the city of Pullman. I think we look at the other issue that's on your agenda and ours, and that's transportation. One of the things is, in lieu of 25 different taxes and fees, shifting to the sales tax on vehicles, state portion, going to transportation, possibly phased in, and we have a fair and equitable system. Vehicle miles traveled is bad news for rural Washington. Gas tax is not as dependable as it once was. Weight fees are hard on people that don't drive much. So it really works potentially as well as any source we would have, with the number one priority being finishing connecting Washington projects, followed by maintenance, which we know is not what it could or should be at this time. And I think the one issue that, rather than get into the weeds of things that I might sponsor or we might see, and that is the long-term care tax. It is incredibly poorly put together. And it's something that we got to think about. We have a lot of people that come from Idaho to work here. They never get to see a dime of it. It's not portable. So if you're looking at relocating someplace to work or retire, it's not portable. If you add up all of the flaws, it would cost double what the premiums are now for the same very small benefit. It's not a good deal. I introduced legislation that would repeal it, replace it with a commission to look for ways that the private market could supply long-term care insurance better than being overwhelmed like we were this year. I know it's on the Chamber's radar screen. It should be on yours because it's really a poorly thought out plan that needs to go away and something better to replace it. If we look at the capital budget, it'll be an area I work on. And in capital budget in general, one area that we're very concerned about is inflation. We have this feeling that 6.8 may not be the peak of inflation. Many of us in this room remember double-digit inflation. So think now of a public works project. Plastic pipe has doubled in recent months. Well, if we're putting money out for infrastructure, whether it's water, sewer, irrigation, it's doubled. We know cement has gone up, we know steel has gone up, labor contracts have gone up, on and on and on. So one of the things that I'm suggesting is the capital budget do a set aside for inflation in building materials, and we take it into account in other public policies as well. So I've rambled on long enough, and I'll cede the mic to Representative Schmick.
And Joe, you might just turn that button on. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the senator gave a good outlook what things are going to look at, probably more of local interest. Remember the flash flood and the LNI, there was people rescued by our public safety folks using a front-end loader. Well, we're going to take another run at that. Good. You're welcome. And basically what it will do is that after you go through the whole process, the director would have the authority to waive, at the end of the day, fines, penalties, in extraordinary circumstances, which I do believe the example you had here locally was an extraordinary circumstance. So we're going to take another run at that and try to get that. It's all ready to go. I actually have a bill to fix a lot of the problems with the Long-Term Care Trust Act. My preference is to get rid of it, to follow Senator Schessler's lead, but mine bill would take care of a lot of the problems that have been brought up with that. It deals with out-of-state workers. It puts a limit on the income limit. It has an annual opt-out period, meaning that if our intent is to get people to purchase long-term care insurance, and then they choose not to participate in the state, they would be able to provide that on an annual basis. It also would have an H-2A exemption. That means for workers that come in and work on a very temporary basis and then go home, they wouldn't have to pay into it. It would make it portable, the benefits, so out of state. And it certainly deals with out-of-state workers. They wouldn't pay into it at all. And it also, there's a requirement because a lot of the carriers were worried. Once you got your exemption, sent it into the Employment Security Department, they dropped the coverage. Well, my bill would require the carriers, when that happens, to notify ESD, and then they have to notify the employer that they need to start collecting that tax again. So that's what my bill does. It takes care of a lot of the problems. However, I would rather start over and follow Senator Schessler's lead. Mine's kind of a fallback position on that. And since I got I'm concerned about the 988 system. Remember, Congress passed the ability for the states to pass a tax on your cell phones, and that is supposed to go for mental health delivery of services. I'm pretty concerned about this because rural areas have been left out of the, we want to say, the governing board of that, and so there's not a lot of input for rural areas, and my concern is one size does not fit all. Rural Washington has distinct problems with mental health and the way we deliver those services, and they need to be accounted for. The first thing, and a very basic thing, is that 911, 988 should work seamlessly together. Meaning, because I think people, if they're in trouble, they may just call 911 and not call 988, and that needs to work together. But like I said, we've got some challenges, and we've got to make sure that the rural areas, it will work here and deliver those vitally important services. And so I did want to mention that because that's really one of the things at the top of my radar. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you folks and what you've got planned.
We'll open up to the council first of all, and you have our 2022 legislative priorities before you. Anyone want to speak to any particular item? And here comes Mary. Her timing is just fantastic. It's just like you waited outside and waited for Joe. Hope it wasn't too icy getting here, Mary.
It wasn't.
Okay.
If it was, I didn't notice.
Okay. Because we heard that Mark had some icy traveling this morning from Ritzville down to Clarkston.
I
So.
think there was some coating in town.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can. Joe gave a little update from the legislature, and I know that you have a couple of bills that I've actually seen that people are talking about, because one of them deals with the environment and what you're trying to do. So why don't you just give an update on that?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us, first of all. It's really kind of you to let us participate. So yes, the governor announced his climate agenda yesterday, and I've spent a lot of time discussing it in different media and providing, an alternative view. The governor is very focused on spending the Climate Commitment Act dollars, roughly $3 billion of the $4 billion in the 4-year outlook, towards more carbon emissions. But the reality is, with the Climate Commitment Act having passed and the trading scheme, that it's already baked into the policy as it is, and we're just trying to squeeze the last 2 drops of emissions out of the total economy at a great expense to Washingtonians with little to gain. And so I put forward a very comprehensive policy that will deal with the real and tangible things that we can do now with those dollars, things that we haven't been able to accomplish in the past, and focus on forest health, drought resiliency, really dealing with our floods and the flood infrastructure that hasn't had the finances and resources to really invest in, and we're seeing the impacts of that. And then Puget Sound restoration and recovery, and the salmon issues are largely based on a lack of commitment to invest in new technologies for wastewater treatment and having a large enough infrastructure to support the growing population in the Puget Sound region. And then outdoor recreation, really doubling our park space and getting rid of the Discover Pass and investing in, properly developing the lands that the Parks Department owns so that there's more access, and investing in safety and amenities that families can go out and enjoy our beautiful park spaces. We found that in COVID, that was a problem. Our plan is called ORCA. It's a mnemonic for outdoor recreation and climate adaptation. And it gives a significant contrast and alternative to how that our Republican caucus would prefer to use the Climate Commitment Act dollars to the benefit of all Washingtonians across the state.
And I know you've been very active with the infrastructure and making sure that people can get access to the internet in all kinds of areas, not only just in the rural areas, because we have plenty of people on the west side that don't have that kind of coverage. So
Yes, it's
you're still
amazing.
working on that project.
Amazing how many neighborhoods in Olympia itself that don't have access to high-speed internet, that have really dead zones for broadband. And so, yes, I'm planning on hopefully co-sponsoring the bill that makes the programs permanent in the CURB agency, which you guys maybe have done grants with. And then my bigger infrastructure project with Senator Schessler, Senator Warnick, and Representative Dent is about to be decided upon for a major watershed project to finish out the Odessa groundwater replacement and really holistically look at that watershed so that we can do some serious aquifer restoration, some significant conservation projects, and some recreation and habitat. It'll be a big, pretty robust 10-year project.
Okay. Well, with that, we have our list here, and I'll just mention a couple, and then the other council members, I'm just go to Nathan, because mental health has been one of the issues that you've had on your list for some time, and we've all had that on our list. And why don't you just give us a little update on what you would like to see from our legislature in terms of support for that? And we see that with our police department and others, how important it is. So, Nathan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, all three, for coming. I don't know what other council gets such a pleasure to have all of them, all of you, to be right here. As far as mental health, you know, we've talked about this a number of different times. You're such a champion, and I really, really appreciate that. And as far as being able to have more providers in our area, and especially post-COVID, during COVID, we saw a huge impact on that. It continues to occur in that way. I think also something that goes without saying is it impacts our emergency services. Not only those that are in the trenches on the front line, but the people that they're responding to. So along with that is, of course, the homeless. We're seeing some increasing population with that. I mean, it's a beautiful city. Who wouldn't want to be here? So I think keep doing what you're doing. As long as we can get more people into this field, that's really, really important for us here, I feel. So,
Eileen?
Yes, thank you guys for being here. Mary, we're glad you could make it. I was a little worried there for a minute. There. One of the issues that I've worked on, and Mark and Joe and Mary know this, is about the railroad tracks that are within the city limits. And there's a lot of entangling issues with those. Anytime we're dealing with railroads, it's very complicated. But what we're hoping to accomplish with what Mike's done a great job of coming up with this, exactly what we're looking for to target in Pullman. And our city playfields are an absolute gem. And with the railroad tracks being in the status that they are now, we can't use that space very effectively. The parking is kind of a mess. The little kids and the grannies and the baby strollers have to cross the street to get to the playfields. And if you go down there on a Saturday afternoon, I mean, it's like the circuses in town. That is a very popular location. And if we had all that right-of-way there along there, we could move the road, we could reconfigure that area and do a lot with that, and of course connect to the downtown. And WSU's got some projects that intertwine there on some of their turf as well. And so you've been talking, I think, with the port about the steam plant and bringing all of that together. It's a really beautiful area. We're short on flat space in this community. And yeah, if we had that whole flat area, we could develop, you know, sort of a coalition. Yeah.
Who owns them?
I don't, that's above my pay grade. The state,
real estate,
yeah, the state owns most of that. It
Yeah,
belongs
correct.
to the state.
The DOT owns most of it as it goes through town. There's some small areas where there's some other owners that, like St. John Telephone, and they're motivated,
But
so,
it's not owned by BNSF.
correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
it belongs to the people.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'd like to use it for the people. And some of the improvements that, that we're talking about, we're looking at economic benefit, we're looking at safety, we're looking at expanding that whole network down there again with the port and,
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the, thanks, Mayor. I'm glad you mentioned the steam plant project. I think it's a unique opportunity to infill within the community for economic development, whether we go the business incubator route or other. WSU, for those of you who don't know, can't access the Model Toxic Control Account, commonly known as MOTCA, but the port can. And that money is there at MOTCA for things like cleanups of a brownfield. So you assume with coal air and use for generations that there's going to be a cleanup needed. But I think we have a pretty good potential partnership there that we could come out of it with infill economic development, cleaning up a brownfield, and utilizing the tools in the toolbox. I hope that the estimates and things are in place by the time session comes, that we have a plan. We really weren't ready last year. We were in the brainstorming area. Hopefully after a year, the port and the university are right like that.
yeah, I spoke with Brian Kraft, I think 3 or 4 days ago. He's the one that's kind of heading things up for WSU. And he's been working with some of the port commissioners, and we'll loop some of the county commissioners in on this as well as we go forward. And then we're going to have to kind of count on you guys to help us push this forward and help make that
MOTCA's the
happen.
obvious vehicle. I mean, the port district's pockets are limited. WSU's ineligible. So that fits in really, really well as to when, where, and how it should go.
And working that railroad will also help us quite a bit, because again, with our playfield right down there and all that. So, Joe?
Do you have a list or a map of exactly what you'd like pulled out?
I'm sorry, where the tracks are coming through town?
Yeah.
If you do, well,
We can email it to
We'll
you.
get it to you, yeah.
thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because we've been working with Civic Trust too on the thing, and we've got some ideas, and we want to make sure that's consistent. But we have been working with Civic Trust because it would make this community so much better if we can do that. And
Okay.
plus, there's no traffic there right now. The other thing we've mentioned on our transportation needs, one, we still want to get 26 done and get some passing lanes there, and I know you've been a champion of that. All three of you have been. And DOT basically put it on the back burner, and we need to still get that done for safety of people traveling on Highway 26. The other thing is that we're talking about is the bypass, and we're not saying north or south, but since there's still a lot of right-of-way that we have on the north, one of our aims is to see if we can get the bypass going so we can get the traffic out of downtown on the bypass. And working with the county, the state, and others, after we did the airport runway, we actually got the meeting with the state, thanks to your efforts. And we're moving in that direction. We'd like to see if we can get that done. So, yeah, we have a number of asks. Pat, do you have some comments that you'd like to make on this?
Well, I think there we go. The bypass is really important, regardless of whether we go north or south. One of our initiatives, as you can see it hit at the top of the list, is our downtown area. And the bypass is almost critical and/or pivotal to the launching of that downtown effort. Diverting the commercial truck traffic out of downtown is going to be huge for revitalization and ongoing development. I can't tell you the number of people that say, I'd like to come downtown, especially in the summer, sit outside, but I can't visit with anybody. I can't enjoy the time outside because of the truck traffic. And it goes on, just about the entire time frame that people would normally be outside. So it's the agricultural cargo and, transportation, but diverting traffic around. As I say, either north or south, it would be huge to be able to
Well,
get that
technical
going.
question, Pat or Glenn. North bypass has been conversation we've been having in recent years. Is the south bypass feasible since we realigned the airport and transferred the right-of-way to the airport?
Actually, the north is actually more usable since we transferred the property. That works out far better, and we at least have right-of-way there. The south is a major project to try and get right-of-way and to try and get some. We have met with the county. We have a bypass section up here, up on by Bishop Boulevard, but just trying to get through all the different areas to get over to the Highway 270 is a major ask. But with the north, we think it's easier bypass because of all the right-of-way that's already been obtained. Plus, we have development out in that area too that works. But
Well, I have the assumption that south would be quite challenging.
Yes.
Because of the airport realignment we finished. One of the interesting things is different times I've asked DOT if we suddenly had another package, what projects have you got in the queue? And whether it's the west end of the district with Highway 17 or whether it's Pullman bypass here, these don't seem to have these projects in the queue until you really pressure them. That, well, if I suddenly had $100 million to spend in my district, what have you got? It's sort of frustrating that if, a pot of gold comes, what have you got?
they did a nice job with 195 and passing lanes, and we every
And
time
that
we go to
was-
Spokane, that was fantastic.
And that was part, connecting
A lot of work.
Washington was that, and it was the 26 lanes, which keeps me going back to Olympia, because I don't take my vote lightly. When we did the nickel package, we got Moscow Pullman.
Right?
A future package needs to reflect the entire district again.
And Sean Coates is our Public Works Director. Sean, do you want to give them any kind of update in some of your conversations with the county, or do you have anything any new that what we haven't mentioned tonight so far? But I know Sean has talked to the state and tried to get some kind of, at least a
Sure.
message across. So Sean?
So what I would add to that discussion is the county has looked at a way to get some of the farm traffic off of the downtown streets. And so they've looked at another route on the south side, reusing some of the existing right-of-way to the extent possible. So the county's taken a hard look at that, and we're cooperating with that effort as well. That being said, it doesn't take really that hard truck traffic that we're talking about off of the downtown. So it would help, but it wouldn't be the full solution. So I think the north bypass solution that we're talking about here, or the south bypass, is really more of a solution for Pullman specifically.
Has anybody done a back-of-the-envelope estimate of the cost? We see
did-
$5 million for design. Has anybody kicked around a number from the back of the envelope at least?
Yeah, from a back of the envelope standpoint, we looked at the south bypass about 4 months ago, and we took an old estimate from the last time we looked at the route and then inflated that to current dollars, although that doesn't account for a lot of inflation that's happened just in the last few months. But we were ballparking in the range of about 53 million. So if we went with the north bypass, it would be less than that. We don't have a good number on the north bypass, unfortunately, right now. We've got some preliminary work that we're going to kick off next year just to take a look at that number, but we should have that number next year.
Okay,
Have you been engaged with the federal partners as the Manchin bill passed? And how much work have you done with, for example, Murray's office and John Colton, or, Kathy's office, to try and make sure that ask, now that the package is being brought out and we're starting to see what's available, they're using the same programs that were already in the transportation portion. It's something like 260 billion that they put in there. And, I would be in there looking at those buckets for those types of new constructions to see if they have something that they might be able to fit the project into before you get too far in.
Okay, that's great advice, thank you.
Any other comments on that particular line? I can assure you that we still are working on the Pullman Moscow Regional Airport. We thank you again for the help with the wastewater and getting the sewer lines out to the terminal location. You probably have been reading in the news that we have been putting our partners together, and both Moscow and Pullman have ended up for about $2 million each. We've just got a notice both University of Idaho and WSU for $1 million. I know we have meetings this week with the port and with Schweitzer Engineering that we'll be making presentations to, so we're all working together on that. And any kind of state funding would also be welcome. We have, the apron part could come out of the aviation portion of WashDOT, because the apron is something we have to build. And we're also doing stormwater, way of doing that. So when we talk about the whole project in the neighborhood of around 50, 60 million, actually the terminal itself is only about 20 million. But we have a tremendous amount of federal money, so we have got the federal partners together on this. Actually far better than in most cases for a terminal. With the runway, roughly about 92% was all federal money. The rest we had the local match. But with a terminal, it's a little bit different. But Tony and our partners have all put their money together, and we've got some federal money into this to cover the majority of it. And then we're just doing our local match. So if there's something there that you see in budgets that could help us on perhaps addressing a particular area, stormwater or aprons for the airplanes to dock on and things like that, we would certainly be welcome that. We're moving on that project. Again, we've got to order steel now because it takes so long to come in, with the price going up about, it seems like every day. I was at a trustees meeting today of the Spokane Community Colleges, and we were talking about the updates we have there, and they were mentioning about the price increases and what we're seeing in every category. And they're also seeing now bids coming in, and we're experiencing that around here too, where bids come in and they look reasonable and they're below the engineering estimate, and then all of a sudden we get a lot of change orders. And that is also a pattern that's not only here in the state but elsewhere. So we're all working on those matters as we advance through the system of inflation right now.
Well, I think as we talk about inflation, I visited our newest constituents at Liberty Lake a week ago. And the perfect example, I got a new traffic light, double the price of what it was estimated at. So, I mean, we have to brace ourselves for these things and develop strategies, whether it's the overall budget or whether it's a basic function of a small city.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you looking at for the stormwater? Are you looking at any, trying for any innovation in that space?
Well, one, we have to have a storage capacity to take care of any of the de-icer, and we have to have ways of removing that de-icer at a regular basis, but we definitely can't have that hit stormwater. So we have to build retention, and that is all part of this whole project. So any kind of innovation where there's money available from ecology or from others that could help us pay for that would certainly be welcome.
So on my ORCA plan, it has a very robust funding stream for stormwater. And-
Wonderful.
and
You can
so
just earmark it for this.
So hopefully we can,
Yeah.
move forward with some of the programs that are being proposed. I know that, this serious plan and members of the Carlisle and others in the Senate have been seriously considering adding in some of the elements that we're proposing.
And again, we're on a fast track because some of our federal money will expire if we don't get moving quickly. So we've got everything to basically complete by the end of 2023. We've got to get it done by that time. So that means Mary, you have to move a little bit quicker to get through all that ecology.
Yeah.
You okay? Just put the pressure on you. Ann? Any comments
No,
from?
go ahead.
Okay.
You haven't gone yet.
Okay. Pretty much everything's been covered. I want to thank all three of you for being here and for the work that you do on our behalf. I do echo everything that's been said. Our downtown revitalization is our number one goal, and so we're looking for help in lots of different areas. We do have a downtown Pullman Association organization who's working also, and we're collaborating with them. And they're looking at we are all looking at ways to, for example, incentivize building owners and business owners to upgrade or improve their facades and their entryways, things like that. And so if there are any granting opportunities out there that you know about, or any monies that could go toward things like that, that would be helpful. And pretty much everything else, the Highway 26 passing lanes is huge too, of course. So I don't really have anything to add, so I just appreciate your being here.
And I do appreciate your work on the long-term care, because when you hear of so many people that it would not even cover, not only those that live in Idaho, but those that might have gray hair and seniors that, fine, I could be giving money to, but I'll never get it. And some of us have spouses that don't qualify for long-term care anyway because of pre-existing conditions. So there's so many things that, and then when you start talking about, okay, after 10 years, you'll get $36,000. Well, when you take a look at the inflation right now, that might cover you for 2 months or 3. And it just wasn't put together soundly. And now, finally, some of the, the majority party is recognizing that and asking the governor to put at least a delay on it. So, but I do appreciate the fact that you're working on it, because I know it's one of the chamber's priorities right now too, is that just when you start talking to our major employers, and Schweitzer is one of them, saying, we have so many employees right now that live in Idaho and they don't even get any coverage. And so this is really important for this whole community, and you also hear it up in Spokane. So keep monitoring that as much as you possibly can. Yes.
So on the long-term care piece, I was reading an article from the Washington Hospital Association this afternoon, and there isn't staffing to maintain the long-term care facility, so getting access in is very difficult at this point at all as well. So clearly, they didn't contemplate the demand and the need in the 10-year time frame that we have to do as well. So the entire policy isn't really well thought out. There's better priorities for the money that could be spent more wisely by making sure that we have rules and laws that make it easier to staff the facilities and to build sufficient capacity and anticipation of the need, rather than focus on a payroll withdrawal.
We see so much need, not only from the university standpoint with our College of Nursing, also from the Elson S. Floyd College of Medicine, and we've got our now affiliation with Pullman Regional Hospital to have primary care physicians here. And there's so many ways that we can help get more people out there to treat individuals. And today we were talking that at the Spokane Community Colleges with our nursing program, where they can graduate in 2 years with an RN, but then they can build on that and get a 4-year degree as well. So the more people we can supply in the medical field, because we know that's going to be a major demand, and it is right now. We see so many cases of where there's burnout after this COVID, and they're still dealing with it. So the more that we can help in that regard. Mike, is there anything from your standpoint that you would like to bring up? And Laura, I'll turn it to you too. Is there anything that you see from your legal perspective that our legislators should hear of? Okay.
No, and everything has been discussed very nicely, and I already sent a note out to follow up on the maps as requested, as well as a link to our GIS. So if you want to explode it in, you can take some really close looks. So thank you.
And one of the things that we always like to bring up in these sessions and others is how can we help you? And one of the things that I really appreciate with you is that with all three of you, you get a hold of us when you have a measure that you say, okay, how will this impact Pullman? Or we have something being proposed right now, how will that impact us? Or I need some clarification on this. And all three of you are really good about getting back to us on that. And I really appreciate that so much. We appreciate your representation. Nathan.
Just one last thing. So it was interesting, Mary, to hear about the aquifer, because I know for us, that's beginning to be a larger issue. And so hearing about Orca was really interesting, so I'd love to see that. I also think it's important to mention something. If you have a chance to talk to police chief, he just finished the first round of the Citizens Academy, Pullman Police Citizens Academy. And it was so interesting. Myself, Mike, we were a part of this, and to see it from the other side of the badge, you know, especially seeing everything that's happened nationally, being able to see all of the challenges that are faced, you know, by those people in that line. That's really, really important. So I just wanted to mention that, and if you have a chance, definitely.
Is that a model that you have that we could replicate in other jurisdictions?
I am not sure, but
Gary, do you want to come up and address that?
Jenkins would know.
I had a chance to go through the Citizens Academy a while back, and really, you really benefit from seeing a perspective with all the different challenges. And now with what the legislature's done, there's some challenges there that I know they're working on for clarification. So Gary?
Yeah, we're definitely not the first to do it, but we made our own brand of Citizen Academy, and it's just, it's a good opportunity and a way to show transparency and also build a relationship with our community. So thank you, Councilmember Weller, for mentioning that. We do have, if you are interested or you hear of another agency that's looking for some suggestions, we'll be happy to share anything that we have with them. Okay. Senator?
Gary, what's the most egregious part of the law enforcement? What is the most egregious part of the 13 different bills last year impacting law enforcement?
Well, if I were to have to pick one, it would be the use of force, because that restricts our ability to detain suspects of crimes. We're limited to just only using force if we have probable cause for an arrest, and that has had significant impact on our ability to investigate crimes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there another one that we had to buy different armament to take care of the
Right.
non-lethal?
Yeah, if I were to pick the second one, it would be the definition of military weapons, which we actually had to take out of service a less lethal weapon because it was greater than the 50 caliber firearm definition of a military weapon. So those would be the top two.
Because that was the quasi beanbag, but it was a non-lethal weapon, and
Right, we did find another weapon that is not considered a military weapon that we were able to acquire. We still feel the other weapon is a very good, less lethal alternative. Definitely had unintended consequence by taking away a less lethal weapon. So it would be nice to be able to get that back.
I know Spokane went through the same situation that we've been going through, and
Yes.
other departments as well, trying to get
Yes,
some non-lethal.
absolutely.
All right.
Thank you very much, Gary.
Thank you.
That, if there's no other questions or not, we just want to thank you so much for being here tonight. And I know that we also have a council meeting after this, so we again appreciate it. We'll take a 5-minute break and just have a chance to thank you, and then we'll start our council meeting. So
Thank you.
again,
Thanks for
Joe and Mark and Mary, thank you so much. And again, thank you for being so responsive on our government affairs for the chamber and being there on those Friday mornings at 7:30.
That's always helpful every time.
All right. So we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll start our meeting.
Oh, no, it's, they'll come in handy on my drive back to Ritzville.
It's now 7:49, so we'll reconvene the meeting. We again thank our legislators for being here tonight and being so responsive to all the different comments. Everybody throughout their district has needs, and they at least are listening to us all. So with that, we're now moving to item number 2 under presentations tonight. This is the Zipley Fiber project status. There have been a lot of comments in this community in every one of the council districts and wards, and we have taken a number of phone calls, and so we're asking tonight, both Sean Colts and Edward Rank-Kulfer, who's here tonight. Edward's been dealing with it directly, but Sean is our Public Works Director and can give us an update on what's been going on with that. And I know it's generally the subcontractors that we've had the problems with. So, Sean?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, just to talk a little bit about the purpose of the discussion. At the request of Council, this item is a discussion of the Zipley Fiber construction work in the public right-of-ways and the utility easements. I'll give a brief overview and then hand the discussion over to the Zipley representatives that are here tonight. To provide a little background, why is Zipley Fiber working in the public right-of-ways and easements? That work is to construct a private fiber internet service and the infrastructure associated with that. And that largely consists of below ground and above ground conduit and cable. Construction began in September of 2020. That infrastructure is being located, like most of the dry utilities throughout the city, within the public right-of-ways and within easements. Often that right-of-way and the utility easements extend anywhere from 5 to 20 feet beyond the back side of the sidewalks. And so in the areas, especially the older parts of town where there's significant mature landscaping, that becomes particularly disruptive. The city's permitting process for this work is done through right-of-way disturbance permits. An example of one of these permits is included in the council's packet along with a copy of the standard permit conditions. To date, Zipley has requested 86 permits. Most of those permits are complete and closed. At the time of the writing of the council packet, 2 of those permits were being held so that Zipley could demonstrate compliance with the permit conditions. They've since demonstrated that for those 2 permits, and those 2 permits have been released. I want to talk briefly about the community concerns and then hand this over to Zipley to talk about that, their project, and responses to some of those concerns. So the community concerns and responses have been summarized in a timeline in your council packets, and that's documented under a document titled Zipley Fiber City Inspection Update. It's fairly extensive. It's 15 pages long, so I'm not going to go through all the detail here, but I'll summarize that. A majority of those concerns primarily include 2 issues. One is impacts to landscaping and private property. And then the second is notice in advance of the work. So I want to point out 2 permit conditions that are issued with every one of these permits that Zipley obtains to do this work, and that is that permitting does require return of the site conditions to equal or better condition. And we'll talk about this in some more detail tonight, but that hasn't always happened. When site conditions haven't been properly returned to the original condition or better, when that's been brought to our attention or we've discovered that through inspection work, we've brought that to Zipley's attention, and the vast majority of cases, they've worked on that. So that's one element. And the other element I want to talk briefly about is notice to the property owners in advance of the work, especially where it impacts their property. So our permit conditions require 48-hour advance notice. And again, that hasn't always happened. So again, 2 of the biggest issues that we've seen with this work. And with that, I would like to hand the baton over to Rob Vigil, as well as Tom Mern, here with Zipley. And Rob is here via video conference.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Rob?
Yes, good evening. Good evening, City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this evening. Let me get my screen up here. And also, so let me introduce myself. My name is Rob Vigil. I'm the Director of the Program Management Office for Ziply. And in person representing us tonight is Tom Mern, Manager of Engineering for Ziply. So I believe Tom is going to speak to the first portion of the presentation, and then I will complete with a project overview and address questions, concerns.
So I guess he's passed it to you, Tom.
Yeah, and I think he's going to,
Okay.
and again, as Rob mentioned, Mayor and Council, we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you tonight, to make sure we're listening to the concerns of the community. When I began my communications career, and as Rob mentioned, I'm the manager of engineering for Eastern Washington, Idaho, and Montana for Ziply Fiber. When I began my communications career, I was the general manager for Frontier Communications, had this area. Mayor, we worked together, and we were working with a really antiquated, challenging copper network, as I'm sure all of you know and have experienced. And Ziply Fiber is a new company. My wife and I had the opportunity to come back to the Northwest and be part of this just recently. And we're excited to talk to you about that today. And we've had really an unprecedented build in your area to replace that copper infrastructure that's really in the ground and in the air all throughout the community. And it's a very challenging situation to jump into that level of a build and replace this old antiquated communications network with world-class, state-of-the-art fiber optic network. And Rob, if you can move to the next slide. One of the things that we looked at as we were coming to the meeting tonight was the city's mission and Ziply's mission, and really some of the consistent underpinnings and values of our company and what the community represents. And I know that very well, having lived here in the area in the past. And for us together, working with the city and presenting really an unprecedented challenge for the city resources also with that level of activity, we have brought that modern internet capability to more than 7,000 households. And Rob will get into the detail of what we've accomplished to date with respect to that. And those are 1 gig today, and very shortly in the next year, those will be the highest speeds available today in the United States as we ramp up our network. So really, Pullman is going to be in a position basically citywide to have world-class services for our citizens here. Next slide, Rob. And one of the things that we're committed to, and we've been working very diligently after the beginning phases, and you can see as you look at the complaints and the issues that occurred, especially early on in our build, we've been working very diligently to really improve not only our notification, but our restoration. And as Sean mentioned, when an issue is brought to our attention, Rob and I are going to run those to ground and make sure that we take care of the situation. And with that, Rob is going to run through some additional slides.
Thank you, Tom. Can you all hear me okay?
Could use a little bit more volume, but yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll try and talk a little bit louder. My computer just asked me to reload, so my apologies. So again, thank you for the time this evening. I want to pick up on a couple of points that Tom hit on. So the infrastructure that we have built here is really a future-proof network. It is not a wireless solution. It is not a it is a fiber optic network. And as Tom mentioned, we are in the process of soft launching multi-gig speeds, 2 gig and 5 gig speeds to the home, which is absolutely world-class when you talk about fiber to the home Ethernet speeds. So I want to give you a little bit of a background on where we started. So as Sean mentioned, we started construction in September of 2020. We started applying for permits, you see here in June. So it took us a little time to get our permits, get our plans together, get our resources mobilized. And I want to really reinforce what Tom mentioned. So this is not a rebuild of a transmission here. This is a completely new fiber optic network, so parallel to our existing copper network. So what you see here are the red lines that are what we call our backbone fiber. You might call it a water main.
Say, Rob?
Or mainline
Say,
fiber.
Rob?
Yeah.
Your presentation's not showing, so we're entertained by looking at you, but we're looking for the map and the slides as well.
Yes, nobody wants that. So let me see if I can sort this out here. How is that?
There we go. There we go.
Is that better?
Yes.
It always helps to have somebody on the field right here, so thank you, Tom.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Please don't hold that against Zipley Fiber. That's an error between chair and keyboard, so my apologies. So as I was saying, these red lines are our main fiber backbone. You can think of them as a water main. These all originate from our central office, and again, this is a brand new parallel network. So these red lines indicate what we had built from project start, which was really June 2020, through June of 2021. These color-coded outline boxes or polygons, if you will, are the areas or the neighborhoods that we built. So the way our system works is these red lines transport a large number of fibers and data capability to a neighborhood, at which point we take that large capacity, break it down, and provide service to the home. So at every home that we are providing service to in this coverage, it is a wired connection. So as you can imagine, there is a lot of construction activity going on in the right-of-way. As Sean mentioned, oftentimes the road, there's not improvements, park strip, sidewalk, although the right-of-way is built to accommodate that. So we are working through existing landscape and backyards where we have existing pole lines and rear easements and things of that nature. So just want to give this overview of what we accomplished from project start 2020 through June of 2021. So we enabled 12 neighborhoods that you can see here, which amounted to about 1,981 locations or households. We call them locations because there could be small business in there as well. We placed 3 backbone routes. So we placed routes 2, 3, and 4, which are these bold lines here, and a total route mileage of 51.1 miles of fiber optic cable amongst all of this work here. So it was in, I want to say May, I believe, looking at my timeline here. So it was in May when we got back to the table with the local Pullman team, Public Works team, had a regroup of things that went well and things that obviously didn't go well. We retooled, we hired a consultant to come into the market, mobilize them into the market, and actually had them in the market full-time up until last week to oversee, Mayor, as you mentioned, our subcontractors who are doing this work, and to get a more a more efficient grasp on the volume and velocity of what we were trying to accomplish. With that partnership, with the Public Works team, we were able to win their confidence and got a significant amount of permits released starting in July of 2021. So this is a depiction of what we accomplished from July of this year through the end of November. So if you recall from the previous slide, we had enabled about 12 neighborhoods. In the last handful of months, we've enabled an additional 36 neighborhoods. That equates to about 5,400 more residents be enabled for gig fiber speed. We placed one backbone, which was our Route 1 backbone here. You see the red line there. And we placed an additional 77.8 miles of fiber optic cable during that time frame. So we certainly had some opportunities to learn from our phase 1 deployment. I believe we implemented those and certainly not without some issues. What I will say is that I believe what you've heard from Sean is that the issues were, as they were brought to our attention, were remedied, I think, with high quality and in a timely fashion. Now, the one thing I want to really draw to your attention.
So Rob, Rob,
yes,
didn't mean to jump in again, but it's back to your name on the slide instead of the slide I think you tried to advance to.
Okay, it keeps kicking me out of the meeting, so I have to, let me reshare again, my apologies. Can you see me again, Tom?
There you go.
You're on.
Okay, sorry about that. So anyway, I wanted to, so this last depiction here is a total snapshot of what our footprint, our enabled footprint looks like today. So this is inclusive of any work started from September of 2020 to the present, which is a total of 7,300 residents enabled for gig fiber speed with a total amount of fiber being placed of about 129 miles. So again, as Sean mentioned, deploying a brand new network into an existing footprint is very challenging. It is messy from a deployment strategy, and we continue to take measures, have dialogue, and look for opportunities to continue to improve our processes and improve the way in which we communicate with the community. One thing that Sean mentioned was notification. I know Tom spoke about that at the top of the call, and we currently do door hangers to the community. I know there's been some feedback about those looking like a marketing media, so as opposed to a notification of construction coming. So we have taken that feedback back and are looking at that. But I want everybody to know that we have not been perfect in this deployment. We have invested a lot of money to bring a high quality network to the city of Pullman, and I believe through our continued improvement, we have shown to be a good partner in the community. Again, that is not to say that there haven't been some missteps, but when you look at this footprint, right, and the amount of homes that we're enabling, and again, this is an all wired network, so there is no way for us to get to the home without getting to the home. So with that, I wanted to move to my next slide and talk about what is left in our build. So I know from a Ziply fiber block perspective, probably some concern about what is left. So all that we have left to do
I think we've lost the slide again.
Project.
It's bounced you off there again, Rob. And that was the downtown area, which may fit in nicely with your renovation.
Correct.
And then
Correct.
more rural area outside town.
if I had Ziply fiber at my house, I wouldn't have this problem. Okay, you have me back, Tom?
There you go.
Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about what's left for this aspect of our project. So we have 2 neighborhoods left to build. One of them is I think we heard a little bit about the redevelopment project that you all have going on in the downtown area. That is a project we have been in continued dialogue with the Public Works team to understand how we can deploy our project, what the criteria are so that we do not interfere with the future redevelopment plans there. So that is an ongoing conversation. And then we have a project here at the southwest quadrant of the city, leaving the city going into the county, where we have an issue with being able to place per our design prints. We need to possibly set poles, working with Avista to come up with a revised plan to submit back to the city for permit on that. So that is what is left in our current plan to build out in the city of Pullman, which is 2 neighborhoods amounting to about 446 locations to be enabled for gig fiber speed. Now, I will say there is going to be, now that we have a fiber network, there is going to be the service connections coming off of those, not only to the homes, but to the MDU communities, to the commercial residents of the city of Pullman. So again, we have this robust network that is infinitely capable of providing services to all different needs. Again, whether that's commercial, whether that's educational institutions, whether that's healthcare, or expanding those service connections to the home as folks subscribe to the service. One thing I did want to share is we do have an avenue for giving the community a voice. So the link is right here, ziplyfiber.com/construction cleanup. It is a very simple form for the community to enter their information. This goes to a dedicated team that will review the feedback and get it to the appropriate person at Ziply or the appropriate team at Ziply to respond timely and address issues or concerns that are received. So again, you see this here. We acknowledge that construction is messy. Our commitment is to restore the area to as good or better than that which existed before we started. Better than existed is a bit of a challenge at times, but certainly as good is something we strive for. So would I say that there, that we've had some learnings and some missteps along the way? Certainly, I think with a project of this size, there's going to be some of that when we're talking about building through existing neighborhoods. But our continued focus is to build a relationship with the community. This is a sizable investment, a lot of work, and something that we are very proud of, and we are very proud to be a partner with the community for years to come. We are not a company that is building something and fluttering off into the night. So certainly the feedback from the community and from City Council here tonight is something that we take very seriously and want to take back and find out how, continually look for ways to be a better partner in the communities we serve. So with that, I think that's all I had for a presentation tonight. So thank you very much for your time.
Tom, do you want to make some concluding remarks? I had one, when you were with Frontier, we had a line coming down from Coeur d'Alene. Are we still in that same kind of mode? So I remember we had some fiber issues.
Yeah.
Which affected 911 and some other things
Correct.
that happened on that.
Correct. And
how does this prevent this?
Really, with the new company, Mayor, and what we've invested in, and one of the things that Ziply, our brand is to be, a much more modern company, much more in touch with our customers, and to provide reliable internet services. So in order to do that, we've built redundancy into the network that others don't have. So when a particular route can be cut, the traffic can be rerouted through other loops in the network. And so as Ziply is building out this network, we're putting this redundancy in place, which is crucial for not only 911, but just continued connectivity. So it's very difficult for larger portions of the network to be put out with our services. And as Rob mentioned, we will be very vigilant on any issues or concerns that come up. Edward and Sean have my number. I'm local, and have Rob's number, and we will follow up and work through any issues that have been created in the construction activity. And we have implemented new things with our contractors, and we have new communications between all of the Ziply parts that are active, and we really look forward to being a close partner with the community. We're a new company, and you know, we've just made an investment for the long haul, not for the short haul. So, yeah, and we could answer any questions or take back any additional feedback.
And I think, Mayor, to expand on the reliability of the fiber network, copper is a very antiquated service delivery method, right? And it is, at its basic form, it is still two wires twisted together. So the reliability of fiber beyond its capabilities and capacities is the connection method of fiber. So having been around copper networks for a number of years, on both the engineering, construction, and the operations side, wind blowing, hot temperatures, cold temperatures, all of those affect the metallic connection, the one-to-one connections that have to happen in order to deliver a copper network. So fiber, by its connectivity design, is a significantly more reliable network. Is it foolproof? Absolutely not. But absolutely the most reliable delivery medium out there today, and which is why it was critical for Ziply to be successful and provide a product to the communities that we could be proud of. Required a brand new network, right? There was no putting some baling wire on the old Ford, if you will. It really required a brand new build in order to deliver the reliability and the connected lives in the community that we aim to deliver there. So.
Okay. Nathan, you had a comment.
Yeah, quite a few, actually. So the mayor has been very, very welcoming. Tom, it sounds like you've been in the community for a while. Rob, I don't know much about you. Have you gotten any of the emails that we've received? Have we passed those on, Sean? Okay, so let me start by saying, I had talked to Mike about this shortly after Thanksgiving, when, and I'll come out right and say it. It was at Thanksgiving, Parents' Place, and the yard had been ripped up, and this was up on Military Hill, and big old tower in there. There had been no hangers, there had been no contact, and so I, of course, contacted the city. I had seen some complaints on Nextdoor and Facebook previously. Hadn't really given much thought other than, okay, there are challenges. Technology, moving forward, is challenging. I'm not critiquing any of the technology that you guys have. I personally, I'll start off with something nice. I met one of the crews, nice people. Didn't see them working on much. It seemed like nice people. I don't know how many subcontractors you guys have and who is doing all of the arranging with those subcontractors. but it seems really chaotic. I have never seen so many complaints regarding, and this isn't just right away, this is people's yards, this is people's backyards. We've received emails from Moscow on this. And, Tom, I appreciate what you were saying with reaching out, good communication with the communities. This sucks.
I understand.
There's no way to explain it other ways. I'm not saying you. I'm saying the subcontractors or whoever's doing this. I don't normally sit up here and critique. You can ask any department head, any staff, any of the council members. I am a very, thank you, great job type of thing, especially near the holidays. This is bad. This is really, really bad. The only notices I've gotten is join Ziply. And I will tell you this much, if your subcontractors are the ones, you got to understand, those guys and gals, those people are out there, that's your face. That is your face. And they have ripped through the community, a community which I will say is very forgiving and very welcoming and understandable about construction. God knows we've had plenty. This is not good. And, if I had seen how many complaints, I would have said, we got to stop this a year ago. It's just wrong. So I'm stepping off the soapbox, but I'm telling you, I've never come down on anybody like this. And I'm sorry, Tom, Rob, you're able to stay out of the fray. Sorry, Tom.
Nathan, Councilman, I appreciate the feedback, and I appreciate your honesty with us. And we will make sure that we address things that are out there today, and that we address this situation as we go forward. And it's not lost on us what you just brought forward and the honesty. And at the end of the day, we own it. Can't blame our subcontractors or, we own the situation, and we're going to remedy as we go forward. And that you will have my number and the ability for us to come down and address specific situations. And again, we have put things in place internally with respect to our contractors and our oversight, and you'll see a difference going forward. And I apologize for the situation that you described.
I think Pat was dealing with this really early on Pioneer Hill because we were hearing it left and right from that. So Pat, I just go to you.
Well, and this is not anecdotal,
No,
a
definitely
complaint
not.
that I've read, this was a personal experience. And when you have a personal experience like that, you can only figure that it's exponential. So if it's affecting me, it's affecting other consumers. Friday afternoon, my husband and I lost our TV connection, internet, and phone. Although I didn't realize it at that time, the phone had been out for about a week. I rely on my cell phone, but we have a landline. So we called, didn't get any satisfaction at all as far as repair coming out to take care of a disconnection on the landline. And I can tell you from personal experience, I am a 20-year retiree from GTE. And if a customer was out of service for 6 hours, let alone 6 days, and what ended up to be 3 weeks, someone was going to pay for that. And I'm not talking monetary, I'm not talking on the customer end. I'm talking, how could we let service deteriorate like that for that period of time? That's a Public Utilities Commission complaint waiting to happen. our TV and our internet got restored because the Spectrum repair person was out on the street, didn't know that we were out of service, and I saw him working at a pedestal, and went over and he opened the pedestal for me and he said, these are your lines. Whoever worked on this didn't know what they were doing and just put them all back in the pedestal, not connected to anything. I finally talked to somebody at Ziply locally, and he gave me his cell phone number, and he was the only person that I could get to respond to anything for me. Talking to your customer service people, they told me that I had to initiate a credit for service outage, that there was no vehicle for them to follow up to give me credit. I still haven't received any credit for having been out of service for 3 weeks. And I find that what you're doing is absolutely commendable. It's a Herculean task, I understand that. But if you don't have the customer service up front attached to that, it doesn't matter how fast my internet is.
Yep.
And I'll relate to, and I've used this analogy before, I know Eileen has heard this. There's a customer service book written by the CEO, former CEO of SAS Airlines, Scandinavian Airlines, and it's called Moments of Truth. It was written by a man named Jan Carlson. And his story is that someone gets on the plane and sees a coffee stain on the back of the tray sitting in front of them. That automatically goes a variety of different ways. Well, they can't clean the coffee stain, then they can't, I'm not sure they can take care of the tires and take that one step further. I'm not sure that I trust that the pilot knows how to fly the plane. So if you don't have the upfront stuff right, there's no trust or confidence that the back end is going to be right.
Understand.
And I've heard, you know, I've given you a lot of detail on my own personal experience.
Correct.
But I've heard similar experiences from people all over town. And now the connotation, all you have to do is say Ziply, and people just kind of start to vibrate. It's like, oh my gosh, don't even mention that word. So I'm sorry that your introduction to Pullman has been on such a negative note, but you know, I'm hoping that the reputation and your work can recover from this, but it's going to be a hard hill to climb.
Right. And Councilman Wright, correct? Yeah, I will do an RCA, root cause analysis, and I will run that to ground so I understand fully what you described. And you have it exactly right. We're going to have to earn that opportunity back. We realize the situation that we have caused, and we'll earn that right back.
I think Eileen had some comments.
Yeah, realizing a situation is one thing, and you say, well, it's not lost on me, and I'm hearing a lot of baloney excuses, and I've heard very little in terms of apology. And I think this community deserves an apology from as high as it goes in Ziply. I realize that you are a very conscientious person and you understand our community, but this has been a hot mess from the get-go, and I'm not sure that it is fixed. You know, thank you for your time, but I think we need a little more than that. I think we need some assurances. You know, people have a form to fill out on the internet. That's pretty cold. There's a lot of personal information that you're asking for that maybe an unhappy customer is not willing to share. So Sean's compilation of the individual emails that have come in, I think, is very illuminating, very helpful. But yeah, way more needs to happen here. Yeah, it may be the best and the brightest or the fastest or whatever, and we can talk about copper all night long. We all know that the pennies in our pocket aren't worth copper. But, I mean, yeah, let's do way better than this in terms of apologizing to the community. I don't know about other types of compensation, But let's see it in the newspaper tomorrow or the next day that there's an apology that is there. It's not maybe being considered, it's not taken under advisement, that it's going to happen, and it is happening.
Thank you for the feedback, and we do apologize. You know, if that didn't come across, that's on myself. We do realize the situation. It's not just words to us. We're here for the long term to earn that trust back with the community.
And I just want to mention, which is in our packet, that those who are watching tonight or those who are in our audience don't see, that approximately 10% of our city engineering technicians' time is usually spent on these things. So far, over 750 hours of Edward's time and others have been spent trying to deal with the Zipley screw-ups. And this is something that shouldn't have happened. And let me tell you, our technicians have done a tremendous job in trying to deal with the customers that have been basically badly handled by Zipley. And we've been responsive to it. In a lot of cases, it's not the city issue, it's Zipley that did it, and we're trying and help a situation. So, you know, when you take a look at our technicians' times, Zipley owes our city quite a bit for just the things that we've been going through. And the amount, you don't know how many hours we have spent as mayor, as public works director, as our technicians have been out there, our planning people, just dealing with all the complaints we've been getting. And again, Tom, I know your reputation from Frontier, and you did the best you could with what antiquated equipment was, and at least you were responsive. But again, you got dealt with something here, so again, we would appreciate some work that would clear this up.
Yep,
Yeah.
and you can
And
watch
if
us.
I might, Tom, to the mayor and the city council here, this is ultimately on me. So I am the director of PMO, and I sincerely apologize. I understand that we've got opportunity here. My sincere hope is that the feedback you've received from Edward and Sean is that things have been better from July forward. I've gone through the complaint. I've lived the majority of those complaints being the single point for Zipley, and a lot of the issues post June. Again, from your perspective, right? It's all it's all one Zipley project. Totally understand that, but I just hope that there is some that we have demonstrated an ability to pivot. Have we been perfect? Absolutely not. If we were, we wouldn't be here. But looking back from June until now, again, reading the report, living many of those, a lot of those were in our early deployment, and we as a new company have grown a lot. I think there's opportunity to continue to grow, right? Our goal is to be better tomorrow than we were yesterday, and we will continue to strive for that.
One other
our
council member
sincere
that hasn't had a
apologies.
chance to speak yet is Ann, so I'm going to go to Ann, and then we need to move on with other
Yeah.
things on our agenda, so.
Rob, thank you for your latest comments. I think a lot of the frustration is that as you were presenting, you weren't really acknowledging what our issues are. You were just explaining what Zipley is doing and how great it is. And that's not why our residents are listening in and are attending tonight. So thank you for saying that. And Tom, thank you. I know this is a hard situation for you, and we do appreciate your being here. The thing about Pullman, and when you talk, when you're doing work in a smaller community, we are not a Seattle, we are not an LA, we are not a large city. And so anything good or bad is amplified a lot because many of us know each other. It's just a much smaller environment. And so we may be small, but our citizenry is powerful. And so we appreciate your being here. And I really do think a public service announcements should be made, some apologies in the papers and in other media, on social networks. It would be a start for the recovery of the reputation here in town. Thank you.
Okay. One last question, okay?
One last thing. Tom, good guy. You're a good guy. I'm not talking to you. Rob, I'm talking to you. This is not a personal growth journey. You've talked about that. You know, you're growing. You've made mistakes. You know, I think the council members, the public have spoken regarding this. And, you know, I just wanted to make sure, you know, Ann is so kind, that you guys really understand exactly what Eileen has said here. You guys gotta earn our trust back. And people ask, is Spectrum, is Ziply? You know, I've had complaints about Spectrum before. You're giving them a good name. So, you know, and I tell you what, my brother used to work for Frontier doing lines. And this, I don't think this would fly with Frontier. So
It would
that's
near
enough.
the end of Frontier, I'll tell you that, because
Yeah.
Frontier's service went to pot at the end, so, okay. Anyway.
So our ears were open, council and mayor, our ears were open. We hope to have an opportunity to come back in the future and
We will.
and be able to demonstrate what we
Okay.
talked about tonight.
All right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
we now move on our agenda. Next is the consent agenda. These items are considered routine in nature. Do I hear a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
Moving second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Laura, you have 19 items.
Challenge accepted.
Best wishes.
Your consent agenda consists of a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 30, 2021, and approve them as submitted. A motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the special meeting of July 2nd, 2021, and approve them as submitted. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 105140 through 105149, electronic transfers 3940 and 794 through 798, payroll direct deposits numbered 72807 through 73147, totaling $967,799.26. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable checks numbered 105150 through 105199, totaling $2,652,214.85. A motion to approve disbursements for accounts payable electronic funds transfer numbered 11252021, totaling $37,400.09. A motion to approve an administrative services contract with the Pullman Moscow Regional Airport for 2021. A motion to authorize execution of renewal licenses with CDW-G state contract pricing for Microsoft Software Assurance. A motion to accept the Sarah M. Moore Memorial River Nook contract as complete. A motion to authorize staff to purchase one new 1-ton 4x4 pickup with plow to replace vehicle number 10-060. A motion to authorize staff to purchase one new 1.5-ton 4x4 pickup with utility box and multifunction power unit. A motion to authorize staff to purchase one new 2022 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles to replace vehicle number 05-020. A motion to authorize staff to purchase one new 1.5-ton 4x4 pickup truck with plow. A motion to authorize staff to purchase 3 new 2022 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles to replace vehicles number 17-016, 17-017, and 17-021. A motion to authorize staff to purchase one new 1.5-ton 4x4 pickup truck with plow to replace vehicle 09-063. A motion to authorize staff to purchase one new 1.5-ton 4x4 pickup truck with plow to replace vehicle 09-064. A motion to accept the airport utility extension sanitary sewer project contract is complete. In addition, you have 2 resolutions, resolution number R-71-21, a resolution authorizing the execution of a fuel tax grant agreement between the City of Pullman and the Washington State Transportation Improvement Board for the Terraview Drive Overlay Airport Road to SR 270 project, and resolution number 3 resolutions. Resolution number R-72-21, a resolution authorizing the execution of an amendment to professional services agreement with Tool Design Group, LLC, regarding design services for a bicycle pedestrian master plan and providing for other matters properly related thereto. And resolution number R-73-21, a resolution declaring certain accounts receivable due to the city of Pullman to be bad debts and removing said accounts from the active accounting records of the city.
Thank you, Laura. Is there any item the council would like out for discussion? Number 8. Is there any others? Then the consent agenda consists of items 1 through 7 and 9 through 19. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moving second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Number 8.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention, if anybody hasn't had a chance to see the Sarah Moore Memorial, it's amazing. I know the mayor was there, overlooks the waterway right by the library, and what a great thing for such an amazing volunteer and community member. So all I wanted to mention, move to adopt number 8.
Second.
Moving second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? With that, we now move to our regular agenda. First item is an ordinance accepting the right-of-way deed from the Community Action Center. Clayton Forsman, our Deputy Public Works Director, is here. And eventually the PowerPoint will be working.
Yeah, I have it on the laptop. I'm just waiting for Rob to
Okay.
upload it. Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, City Council. So on the screen here, you'll see on the south end of town, I've highlighted an area there, and that area represents a project that was recently constructed. It's called the Riverview Apartments, and it was constructed by the Community Action Center. And here, as we kind of zoom into that image, you can see I've highlighted the limits of that project. Access to this site required an extension of Bypass Drive, and that was along the north side of the development. And so if I zoom in here again, oops, wrong button. So on this screen, you can see I've zoomed in, and that section of Bypass Drive is highlighted. You'll see there that it's been constructed to its full 5-lane section. And this is kind of a shift in philosophy. As you can see, the existing south bypass that was constructed as part of the Blues Business Center subdivision was not constructed that full 5-lane width. It was built to an interim section that could be widened in the future. Also, CAC did construct a 7-foot wide sidewalk along the south side of Bypass Drive that abuts their project. So also, I did note in the staff report that the city did contribute financially to those oversizing costs for Bypass Drive. As a requirement of the site plan process, this newly constructed portion of Bypass Drive shall be dedicated by CAC to the city of Pullman by right-of-way deed, and that deed has been prepared and is ready for council's consideration tonight, and I would be glad to take any questions.
And part of our agreement with CAC, the Community Action Center, was that if we could help in this regard, this would also help them on getting grants to help pay for the Riverview apartment, and that's why we participated and helped them in this particular case. So, questions or comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Would you read the ordinance, Laura?
Ordinance number 21-16, an ordinance accepting a right-of-way deed from Community Action Center, a nonprofit corporation.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next comes John Davis, our Finance Director. This is the ordinance amending the ordinance, adopting the biennial budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. For this agenda item, we have the budget amendments for the 2021-2022 biennium budget. On November 30th, I provided a memo for your review. I also provided this memo to the executive management team. I did receive feedback from the airport to remove the amendments from 2021 and the public works staff to add the needed amendment for the bike pedestrian plan that was omitted on the original submission. However, I did not receive any other feedback. So on Exhibit A of your packets, it provides a detailed presentation of the budget amendments. And for the 2021 section is on page 3 of the ordinance in that Amendment A. I've included amounts for the pass-through grants for the airport, as well as the ARPA and Transit FTA grant funds that were not previously budgeted. Also are included the contributions from the Sarah M. Moore River Nook project. And then per the State Auditor's Office BAR's manual, repayment of the general obligation bonds, such as the 2018 City and Parks bonds, must be accounted for in a debt service fund. We have that labeled as Fund 218 rather than the GO Bond Fund 318. And so we have made that change in both revenues and expenditures for both 21 and 22 so that we are in accordance with the BAR's manual. Under the expenditure section, then we have some key changes that include costs related to payroll for the addition of the administrative specialist and communications coordinator positions, as well as costs for the wildfires, overtime for the chief officers, and costs brought about by the retirement and vacation buyout for the HR manager that happened earlier this year. We additionally have adjustments for both 21 and 22 budgets related to the LEF 1 retirees' additional expenses that are located in the general fund under law enforcement and fire. So there were several of the funds where the insurance costs were higher than expected. So we do have those listed throughout the document for 2021. And then the other items on there, a timing of the billing for the completion of City Hall and the release of the retainer at the final completion for the City Hall project created the need for an amendment for 2021. Those are in various funds due to where they come out of. And then the final main item on there is the transit electrical upgrade project and post-factory items such as radios, graphics, and fare boxes for the electric buses purchased during 2021 that were not included originally. And so on to 2022. For 2022, because the airport works on an annual budget and not a biannual budget as we do, the airport board did approve their 22 budget, and we have included both the revenues and expenditures on the 22 amendments in full for their full items. And then under our general fund section for revenues, I have included amounts for those pass-through grants for the airport, as well as the second tranche for the ARPA grant funds that we're expecting. And then under the expenditures section, some of the key changes include costs related to payroll for the addition of the administrative specialist, the communications coordinator, development engineer, and construction inspector positions that were previously approved by council. Additionally, amendments needed to separate the GIS department from the IT department are also presented. And then there are several projects that, due to timing, needed to be rolled forward from 21 to 22. These are identified by the plus sign on the document, and a brief descriptions are provided and were provided in the November 30th memo. We also have adjustments for the CIP projects that were approved on September 28th. These are identified by CIP in parentheses under the account column. And these items were, the adjustments, I'm sorry, are for items that had not previously been budgeted for. Staff recommends approving the ordinance as presented, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Okay, Nathan.
More of a comment. Jonna, thank you so much. There's so much here, and you teased everything out. I will move to accept this, but I would also like to add, as I discussed last time, a item, $5,000 for the Community Relief Fund that provides emergency relief funding for the homeless through the Community Action Center. So that would be my motion, if the council agrees.
Is there a second? And again, we do have a budget process we go through on this too, so I just want to make sure you know that.
Does something like that come out of a different fund or a different line item that wouldn't have to be approved as an exception item like this?
If the dollars are to be spent in 2021, based on where the budget is and how I've worked with the finance director and the department heads, that would need to be included in this. If this was something that were to be taken up in the 2022 budget, there might be some dollars available in places since we haven't spent out any of the 2022 budget.
And in your memo to all the council that you went back with Jeff Guyette from Community Action Center, and we hadn't made this in the budget prior to that. And I know that he's got private funds that are coming in for that community fund too, so.
Right, the memo I sent out, we did an exhaustive search before we reached out to Community Action and asked them to just double check us, and we both came up to the same answer as the memo I sent out.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would like to mention, the comment regarding private funds, that's been shouldered for the last, since 2011, by various faith organizations and individuals in the community.
Right.
However, our police and fire, first responders, often have to deal with this, and I would feel it would go quite a ways to show us being involved in a challenge that's only going to continue getting larger.
Again, you made a motion, I did not hear a second. Okay?
I'll second.
Are you satisfied with the amount or less? Okay.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure because we haven't had a chance to really
Right.
investigate this, but is it, I mean, you explained which budget it would come from, but are you wanting this to happen in the right now, or?
I would say it would be best in the 2021 to provide that, especially cold weather occurring right now.
I mean, do we have the capacity to make these emergency funds available? I guess that's my question.
So to keep our budget in compliance with the state auditor, we don't want to overspend our lines. That's an instant no-no. So if this is going to be a 2021 expenditure, it should be probably a 2021 budget amendment to keep us in between that. If it's a 2022 item, which we have not spent any budget out of yet, there's some flexibility and we can reallocate and also come back. We got another bite at the apple on 2022 as well. All we're rolling over right now for 2022 is those projects that, due to timing, didn't get done, recognizing the CIP that was adopted for 22 and bringing those items in, plus some other positions that council had already previously approved. and then kind of working through that. So much like the taxpayer refund, where we didn't have expenditures in certain places and we were able to fulfill that obligation on the $600,000. That $5,000 that we're talking about here, there might be places in there where it wouldn't need a budget amendment per se, and we could reallocate those dollars with council's approval. But if this is going to be a 2021 expenditure to shore up the budget and make sure it fits properly when we go to report at the end of 21, it really should be in there. So it's a matter of timing.
So would you be willing to amend that to 2022?
I think whatever the council's pleasure. I'm just bringing this up as a matter. We've discussed this, I think, for the last couple of months. Jeff has been in here discussing this even before. I've been talking to the council since I've been on Poverty Awareness Task Force.
So it sounds to me that 2022, and again, they can have expenditures in January or February, would be
I'd
it.
also like to hear from the other council members.
Yeah, I just saying that
Yeah, no,
might
thank
work
you.
better. Any other comments?
I'm just uncomfortable with this as a city expenditure. There's no one more philanthropically oriented than I am, but I don't know that this is a proper or appropriate use of city funds as we're just identifying them here tonight. I'm not opposed to more discussion and having a better understanding of how we can allocate those funds, but I'm just kind of having a hard time putting them in the right place. So I'm open to education, but right now it's not feeling 100% right to me. And I know it's not the case, but it's almost like, are we in a position to make a gift of public funds in this regard? I mean, do we put something like that in the budget? I guess that's where I'm just kind of not sure where we're going with this.
So the constitutional prohibition on gifting of public funds has an exception for I'm just going to say it the way it's worded in the Constitution, for the support of the poor and infirm. So a donation like this would not violate the state constitution. I do question, doesn't there have to be an offsetting revenue account that it would come out of? Does the motion need to identify both the expenditure and the revenue for it to be balanced?
The revenues, there is several revenue sources that could support this, and we can identify the right expenditure account where the revenue is, but ultimately, revenues came in and expenses went out, and we still have healthy reserves. So looking at it on a yearly basis versus a reserve basis, there's some opportunities in there as well, other than the fact that shoring this up as the expense part of it. Going out and trying to find a new revenue for this on the 14th of December is not a thing, so it would probably more than likely come out of a small portion of a reserve of one of the funds. And there's a couple identified that we could look at, certainly the general fund, of course, but there's, I'd want to talk to John a little bit more about what the most appropriate fund would be.
So, Mayor, can I speak? I would say that since staff doesn't know, if you look at the section 2 of the ordinance in front of you, it's my understanding that these changes are required in order to make the budget balance for 2021 prior to the end of the year. If you don't have the revenue offsetting figure identified, then I would say you'd need to hold a special meeting before the end of the year in order to have the specific numbers in front of you so that this ordinance is correct and accurately identifies the amendment to the budget for 2021 before the end of the year. I just don't think it's something that can be added without the detail in the ordinance itself. But unless Councilmember Weller can identify how that should be, what edits should be made to Section 2.
Well, I think, given the comments from yourself, the discomfort it's showing for the council, I've been guilty of being far too passionate and being a little bit pushy. I would like to see us have a discussion regarding this in the future, in January, if we can. And I apologize if it made anybody feel uncomfortable. It is something, of course, everybody knows I'm very passionate about, but I can take back, rescind that motion, if that's possible.
I think you can withdraw the motion, correct?
Withdraw the motion.
As long as the second
Does
agrees.
the second agree?
I do.
Okay.
I seconded so we could have the discussion.
Okay, now we'll get back to the original ordinance that's before you. Do I hear a motion on this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Would you read the ordinance, Laura?
Ordinance number 21-17, an ordinance amending ordinance number 20-11, adopted December 1, 2020, and entitled an ordinance adopting a biennial budget for the city of Pullman for the biennium 2021 through 2022.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 3 tonight is a motion to approve the Police Officer Guild Uniform Employees Labor Contract for 2022 through 2024. Jonna is on the line for that one, okay?
Thank you. The next item before you tonight is the Pullman Police Officers Guild Uniformed Employees 2022-2024 Labor Contract and Subsequent Budget Amendment. As part of a change in process, staff has determined that bringing both the contract and the necessary budget amendment to the council at the same time is the proper presentation of these items. We have worked with the bargaining unit since early summer on this contract. I'd like to thank the Guild for their hard work on this process. The Pullman Police Officers Guild ratified this contract as presented on November 15th, and staff is asking the council to do the same. In a separate motion, staff also recommends approving the ordinance as presented. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions or comments? We know this has been a long, hard process with the city staff and Heidi, who's our HR director. Do I hear a motion on this?
Move to adopt ordinance 21-18. Oh, pardon me. Pardon me.
Item of business needs to be the motion ratifying the 2022 to 2024 labor contract with the Pullman Police Officers Guild uniformed employees.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And since you've read that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, the next comes is the ordinance. Do I hear a motion on that?
Move to adopt ordinance 21-18.
Second.
Okay.
Ordinance number 21-18, an ordinance amending ordinance number 20-11, adopted December 1, 2020, and entitled an ordinance adopting a biennial budget for the city of Pullman for the biennium 2021 to 2022, related to the 2022 to 2024 Police Officers Guild Uniformed Employees Collective Bargaining Agreement.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank
Item number 4 tonight is a motion to approve the International Association of Firefighters Local 1892 for 2022 through 2023. Jonna?
Thank you. The next item before you tonight is the International Association of Firefighters Local 1892, 2022, 2023 labor contract and the subsequent budget amendment. Much like the previous item, staff is bringing both contract and the necessary budget amendment to the council at the same time. We have worked with the bargaining unit since early summer on this one as well, and I'd like to thank the IAFF for their hard work on that process. The International Association of Firefighters Local 1892 ratified this contract as presented on December 8th, and staff is asking that council do the same. In a separate motion, staff also recommends approving the ordinance as presented. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those.
Any questions on this? So the first item, a motion.
Move to ratify the 2023 labor contract with the International Association of Firefighters Local 1892 Union Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Second.
Moving second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next comes the ordinance. Do I hear a motion on that?
Move to adopt ordinance number 21-19, ordinance amending ordinance number 20-11, adopted 2020, and et cetera, Laura.
And Laura can continue reading that one. Do I hear a second on that one?
Second.
Second, we've got a second, okay? Go ahead.
Ordinance number 21-19, an ordinance amending ordinance number 20-11, adopted December 1, 2020, and entitled an ordinance adopting a biennial budget for the city of Pullman for the biennium 2021 through 2022, relating to the 2022 to 2023 IAFF Local 1892 Union Collective Bargaining Agreement.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 5 tonight is a motion to select a consultant. And we have that with Jennifer Hackman, our Economic Development Manager, and a strategic tourism plan for the city of Pullman.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. This item before you is a continuation of a process that we started earlier this year when the city was awarded a grant to perform a strategic tourism plan. And at that time, the council formed an RFP committee. We drafted an RFP and we sent it out October 27th, and all the proposals were due on the 18th of November. The committee got together, the available members of the committee got together on December 2nd and reviewed the proposals. We did receive 4 proposals, and they're all in your packets. I was pleased to get that many. I suspect we've had some of these kinds of firms go under over the last couple of years with what's been happening in tourism. Of the 4, the committee liked 2 of them a lot, and they were both very excellent. The committee did like one of those a little more, and so the recommendation from the committee is for the council to select Place in Maine as the consultant that would perform our tourism plan for us. And so if the council chooses to select a consultant tonight, we would go into negotiation of a contract and likely begin work in January. This contract would go on probably for 4 or 5 months. I just want to mention that we have until the end of June to perform work for this award and the grant. And with that, I will take any questions or comments.
You might mention who's on the committee, and I know you had some council members too on there.
Yes, we had council members Ann Parks and Eileen McCall and myself formed the committee.
Okay.
And I was unable to attend this decision-making meeting due to a death in my family, but I have spoken with Jennifer, and I did read the information, and I agree with the decision with the recommendation.
Eileen?
Yes, thank you. Full disclosure, I had the opportunity to meet the folks from Place in Maine at the National Main Street Conference in Seattle 3 years ago, and I was very impressed. I spent over an hour with them. Becky McCrae highly recommended them, and they really get us. I think they really, truly get us. One of the other proposals was also very good. We almost had to flip a coin at one point. Jen and I had to arm wrestle for it. But so I'm personally committed to Place in Maine, and I think they'll do right by us. I think they really are going to be able to do some really special things for us.
Any other questions or comments, or do I hear a motion on this?
Move to approve Pullman Tourism Proposal, Place Dynamics, as recommended by the committee.
Second.
Place Dynamics is not the consultant that we recommended.
Oh.
Place in Maine
Place
and
in Maine.
Arnett Muldrow.
It is a little confusing.
It
the
is
names.
because
They
it's
have
not
very
on
similar
here-
names.
Not on here as an attachment. So
Yeah.
I revised that motion to identify Place and Main as the
Winner of the consultant.
winner of the
Yep.
consulting.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Laura, you're okay with that? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you so much, council.
Last item is a discussion item tonight, dealing with the Chamber of Commerce Tourism contract. And I know the council's had a chance to discuss this a couple of times. So, Mike Urban.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council. The item we just approved to do a tourism study and come up with some solutions ties into this discussion that we had beginning on November 16th and was asked to bring back at a time where we had more discussions on the LTAC, and that happened on November 30th. So I'm back tonight looking for some direction on the tourism contract. It is set to expire at the end of this year. And now that we have the folks of Place and Main on board to get their work done by the end of June, I'd just like some direction from council what I should be doing with the tourism contract for 2022.
Okay, Eileen.
Thank you, Mike. I think the amendment, or the changes that have been made to the contract, I think are appropriate and functional, and I think this will get us where we need to be as we go forward.
Pat.
I guess I would like to see a little more structure put into this, even though it is, of short duration on an interim basis, of what our expectations are of the chamber in terms of fulfilling this contract. I think, we've been floating along with this for couple of years now, and I have yet to see any kind of structure or expectations put forward, even on an interim basis, of what exactly we want people to do with this, given the time frame that we've got.
Okay, so for clarification, am I being instructed to reach out to the chamber and try to get a one-year contract?
Did you say a longer or 1 year? I'm sorry.
It was, the last time we had a discussion, was talking about timing and getting closer to our biennial budget so we could, especially for the big events, that they could plan for it. And we talked about in terms of a number of years, but it would have to be renewed. And we had discussion with large events and the other events. So how does that play into it?
Right, and those were really LTAC discussions. Okay. On how we're going to accomplish that through the lodging tax. The tourism contract to do our tourism promoting is what I'm bringing up specifically. In the past, it's gone along with the budget, and it was approved on a 2-year basis before I arrived, and 1-year basis while we were doing 1-year budgets. When the 21-22 budget was brought to council, it was dialed back to a 6-month contract for tourism, and then an additional 6 months mid-year to get us to the end of the year and see where things would land. And now we're at the end of that additional 6 months, and with no tourism contract for 2022 or beyond.
I'd like to see it be a year, for 1 year, simply because 6 months is not that long, and I just feel like we either need to commit or not, and I really want to commit, and I think a year is a reasonable amount of time to go through an entire cycle, have the feedback, have the plans, those sorts of things. 6 months is, I don't think it's long enough to.
I would suggest, I would support that.
And Pat, you're
At least a year, yeah.
at least a year. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I will reach out.
Since this is not an action item, now you have a
Yeah, I understand. I'll reach out to the chamber and talk to them about a 1-year contract, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is any new business to come before the council tonight? Seeing none, We are now at the point where this is the last meeting of the year. We want to thank Brendan Chapman and Al Sorensen for serving for the time that we will have a letter for them and support. Dan Records, who also did a fantastic job with us, who had to move on to the west side. And we have our two council members in waiting, Megan Guido and Francis Benjamin, here tonight. And they'll take over as of January 1 when they get sworn in. So again, to all, we wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, happy holidays, and please be safe during this time period too. So any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Done deal.